the evening where you are, but it's about 1:30 where I am. And I'm so excited to be joining you this evening, and was so pleased to be invited to tell a story at your group. It's one of those things that even with all the terrible aspects of COVID and the pandemic, I mean, I never would have had the opportunity to see all your lovely faces, where it would have been a lot more difficult to make the journey over there to be a part of your group when it was in person. So this is a treat for me to be able to be here with all of you. So the story that I have for you is one that actually came to mind again. So I visited Liz Weir, those of you who know her up in the north, who she was my mentor when I first started storytelling. And when I saw her this last trip, when I went out in October, I got to see her and tell this story, so I thought I'd tell it to you as well. In a village by the sea, there lived a young couple. Now, Burl, he had shoulders as broad as his smile. And he was so tall that when he left for work, his wife, Jenny, would have to stand on tiptoes to kiss him on the cheek. But every day he would make his way down to the boats and out to sea. And Jenny, she would stay home and care for the house as well as she could. Jenny, she had many gifts. She could spin a thread as fine as a spider silk. Oh, but if she made a cake, it was really only fit to build houses. Jenny, she could sing almost as well as Anya. But if she tried to make soup, it was as salty as the sea, and Burl was the only one who could stomach it because he loved her so much. Despite all of this, they got on well. Now, one afternoon, Burl was out on the boats and Jenny was at home, and a storm came in. The sky itself grew dark. It was purple and red as if it was bruised by the lightning and the thunder. The waves started to rise higher and higher. The rain came down in torrents. And Jenny, she put her shawl round her shoulders. She made her way down to the docks, where there underneath the awning everyone had gathered, looking out towards those waves that were growing higher and higher, hoping to see some of the boats come in. And as they stood there watching the waves and the rain coming down, they clasped each other's hands. Someone called out for a song, and Jenny sang as well as she could. And as she sang and they looked out to sea, a cry went up. A finger was pointing, but it was not pointing towards the ocean. It was pointing up on the hill towards Jenny's house, for she had left something amiss and her house was going up like a match had just struck. Even with all that pouring rain, the fire was starting to make its way out the windows and to the roof. Everyone ran out into the storm with buckets between the well. They slipped on rocks, they threw water. The rain came down as if trying to help put out the fire, but it went up so big and high, it was as if it would consume the whole town. Thankfully, it didn't. It just burned that house. And finally, when they had thrown enough water and the rain had pushed those flames down, there was smoke rising up to the sky and the ashes. And as they looked at this house, the last few raindrops coming down and sizzling on the timbers, another cry went up. And this time, the hand was pointing towards the docks. A boat was coming in. Everyone ran down, and one after another, the fishing boats limped their way into the harbor until every man was in the arms of a loved one. Jenny had her arms around Burl, and they held each other so tightly. It took a moment before she finally pushed him away, and she looked and, "I have to tell you something." But she couldn't get it out. She simply pointed up the hill towards their house, with the skeleton of black timbers standing against the skyline, and he looked at the ruins of their house. His head went down to his chest, and his shoulders began to shake. But when he lifted his face, he had a smile on it. In fact, that shaking was laughing. He was laughing so hard, the rumble was making its way through the boards, and everybody could feel it in their chests. He began to laugh so hard, he almost choked. And Jenny just looked at him. Oh, the storm drove you mad. And with that, he began to laugh harder until some of the men came and pounded him on the back. And finally, when he had his breath, he picked her up in his arms again. And he said, "My love, my Jenny, that storm came up so fast. We weren't sure how to make it back towards shore. Those waves were so high, we couldn't see any of the coast. I am not ashamed to say that I prayed because I knew that I might never see you again. And then in the middle of that storm, we saw a fire burning bright. And we knew that there were no lighthouses, but that fire guided us back towards land. The fire of our home guided us safely back." And with that, tears ran down her face and his, and they embraced again. And those villagers gathered round joyful, and together they built a new house for Burl and Jenny. And this time it was made of stone. And they loved each other for the rest of their happy lives.